Oh, hello again. I'm doing an important job here. We've had so much wet weather recently. Some of my bird feeders get horribly, the sunflower hearts that I put in these get horribly wet, and then they start to go mouldy, and that's not good for the birds. So quite regularly this time of the year I take them all to bits and wash them out in some just warm water and just a little drop of fairy liquid, because the poor birds are still suffering from this avian flu, and obviously you want to keep feeders as clean as possible. When they get like that, they're really disgusting, and as I say, it's just a matter of quick wash out and dry them before I fill them up again. But that's not what this video is about. I hope you're keeping safe wherever you are, if you're in the UK, because we have had an absolute deluge here of rain before and after Christmas. There was me for weeks, and it had been very dry here. As weather patterns seem to go like this now, you have long dry periods and you have absolute deluges of rain, which we have had. And we have had some pretty bad floods around these parts with the River Nen down the bottom there. Obviously, we're well on the valley here, as this village was built well out the way of the river. But I thought I'd show you some images of the flooding and one or two thoughts about the flooding. And my heart goes out to anybody that's been flooded. I've worked on many years ago when I worked in the construction industry. I did work on some flooded buildings, and it's a nightmare, I know. And I think perhaps that's something we've got to look at in more detail, and probably go back to some old ideas on this, that it's taking far too long to get flooded houses and businesses inhabitable again. It's taking 6 months, a year, even 18 months, I've read, in certain circumstances. Perhaps we've got to design downstairs that can, with some of the modern materials we've got, I'm sure we could do this. So it's a question of clearing the house out, getting some dehumidifiers in, a thorough disinfectant of the area, because obviously flood water contains sewage in certain circumstances and is nasty. It's polluted river water as well, some of it. So it's got to be, the house has to be sanitised, but there must be a way that we can do this much quicker, I feel, for poor people that have been flooded and who can't theoretically get insurance anymore. So anyway, here's some images. I will talk over some of these images, and as I say, any flooding is devastating, and I think there's been parts of the UK that are worse hit than we are. It all started here on Wednesday afternoon. So it's Wednesday, the 3rd of January, and as you can hear that siren going, that's just about a couple of miles away, and that's the local big holiday park caravan site called Billing Aquadrome, and that's the flood alarm. And obviously that's warning people that they must pack a few belongings and get off the site, because the site is probably going to flood. It's still lashing down of rain, and it's now 5 to 1. The siren went on like this all afternoon, right till 10 to 7 in the evening. So hopefully you'll see that even 3 days after the floodwater peaked here, we still have a huge volume of water in those meadows. I'll zoom back out a little bit. That little bridge is the River Nen, and the river is still in full flood, and that field there where the willow trees are, I did a video about those trees if you'd like to have a look at it. They are cricket bat willow trees and are actually harvested to make cricket bats. That used to be just a grass water meadow many years ago. I remember it before those trees were planted there. The farmer got an EU grant to plant those there a number of years ago. And this is a true water meadow doing its job. You know, it's a wide open expanse that the river and backwater, because both these two fields you're seeing where the water is are islands. There's a backwater running at the back of them and the river in the front of them. But that's what water meadows are meant to do, and that's what they, you know, any excess flood water just runs off into the land. It doesn't really hurt the land. In fact, some people would tell you you know, puts a layer of silt there sometimes, which is, you know, quite good for grassland. And those willow trees this time of year will stand the water. So as I say, the floods here are doing no real harm, but it's where we have built and put things on this flood meadow, which has happened locally around here. That's where the problems begin, as I'll show you a piece of video now. So the video I'm going to show you now is 2 miles further upstream up the River Nene, and if we have a look at this is it's called a holiday park, but it's become more, really more people are living on this site now. It's called Billing Aquadrome, and it's open 11 months of the year. And it's been open since the 1930s. It's basically a lot of old gravel pits, some of which were dug out later on to make airfields during wartime. And the big marina lake, where there's some moorings for boats, was dug out in the late 50s to help build the M1 motorway. But the river runs through this site, and this is right on the floodplain. And as I say, there's the river and gravel pits, and all these big static caravans, which are called lodges, I believe, nowadays. But you can see the devastation. You know, this flood's so easy. This happened like this in Christmas time 2020, and the site had to be evacuated then, and a lot of damage was done. It happened in 2007. It happened in 1998. We had a tremendous flood in 1998. You do wonder, and I feel desperately sorry for the people that, you know, have bought these and live there. I think it's terrible. And hopefully, you know, some of them do sit up high and they can be, you know, salvaged. But I think there's going to be an awful lot of these that, I mean, you can imagine static caravans are only thin aluminium and chipboard floors. I mean, once you've got water damage there, they've really had it, basically. They're not like a house that can be dried out. But I seriously think we're going to have to take a long, hard look at this situation and stop allowing things like this to be done on floodplains. I mean, further up towards Northampton, there has been a retail park built on the floodplain, which could flood if we had a really big flood, bigger than this, which is possible. And one wonders whether in time, and it's going to take a long time to do this, whether this should be reverted back to more like a nature site where, you know, the river can do its own thing and it can be just let flood at times of heavy rainfall, because I don't see how many more times you can go on replacing these static caravans just to get them, you know, flooded like this. It's a very difficult, you know, situation, and I know people would have to be compensated, and it would be a tremendous, you know, I don't know who would do it or how that would all work, but I think we have to start looking at schemes like this to get the floodplain back as it should be operating, as a floodplain, not a place necessarily for people to live. This site has had a lot of troubles anyway. It's being run by administrators at the moment because the company that was running it went into liquidation. So there is a lot of problems here with this site. But as you can see, it must be devastating for the people that own these static caravans and lodges, and you know, they had to be evacuated on Wednesday, and hence that siren earlier on in the video was the siren, you know, for them to pack a few belongings and get out, because you know, there is a flood surge coming down the river, and as you can see, it just totally, you know, here, this is quite interesting. This is the main river. This is the main river Nene, and this little bridge here is, I use this regularly to come to and from our village. And in 1947, in the big flood, that bridge was washed away. And this is Billing Mill, and that was mentioned in the Doomsday Book. And sadly, that was a public house, and that shut down a few years ago, and so that's all semi-derelict. Sign of the times, sadly. Well, I've got my bird feeders nicely cleaned out, and they look a lot better, and I think the birds will be thankful I've done that. And I find if you do that, it doesn't waste so many. They tend to pull the nasty ones out and they fall on the floor, so hopefully they are looking a lot better, and hopefully it'll be dry for a few days. As to the flooding issues, I don't know what we do really. It's I think it's going to need some real thought and some real long-term solutions putting in place. Like I say, I think we have to look at making ways of getting people's houses back into occupation much quicker, and so, you know, that flooding doesn't cause so much devastation. It always obviously will, because, you know, you've got possessions in a house which, you know, obviously have to be replaced. But I'm sure the fabric of buildings we could make much more resilient and much easier to dry out. And you know, I believe now they take the plaster up a metre off the walls, they lift floorboards if you've got floorboards. Well, you know, perhaps we should be going back, you know, like the old cottages where there was brick floors, lime plaster, and all that would dry out if it flooded. You know, people years ago didn't spend months out of houses when they got flooded. So I think we do need a fresh approach, and a whole fresh approach to managing our water systems. It's at times like this, it's so easy to criticise particularly government bodies such as the Environment Agency. But I've had quite a lot of dealing with the Environment Agency over the years, and I have to say I'm not greatly impressed with how they manage the waterways. As I've said in other videos, I think it must be, we want it back on a much more regional basis with people who know the areas, who know the rivers, and what the best management you know, courses are for those particular rivers, and what should be done to try and alleviate any floods. As to putting caravans, mobile homes on the floodplain, well, I think there again we have to look at that long term. It's not viable, and maybe that land over a period of time, you know, obviously people would have to be compensated, I realise that, but maybe we should return as much as we can to natural floodplain, which is what I showed when we started, the river meadows down here. But it's certainly, you know, devastating for people, and my heart goes out to anybody that has been flooded. It's an awful thing to happen. And anyway, I hope wherever you are, you know, things go okay, and there's not a lot to be done in the garden. It's so wet at the moment in time, but I'll be back with some more videos very soon. Until then, my best wishes, and thanks for watching as always, and thanks to the new subscribers as well, and bye for now.